You're welcome to Twilight on CRTV News. I am Moki Edwin Kinzeka in Yaoundé. Today we shall be talking about football in the country and asking how they're managing the consequences of COVID-19. We shall also look at the fate of PWD Bamenda, the team to represent Cameroon in this year's CAF Champions League, and look at Cameroonians playing out of the country and the continent. Our guests are Njeno Ibai, sports editor of CRTV Radio, and Gaba Cletus Konyu, who is a sports analyst. We shall also have with us Deng Erikom, who is editor of sports at the daily newspaper, The Guardian Post. We kick the ball rolling with the news, and it's with Joyce Abigail. Good evening, Joyce.
Thank you, Moki.
Lieutenant General Ekoso Francis is the new deputy coordinator of the National Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Committee.
He was appointed by a presidential decree Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, as Clarence Ngeh now profiles the University Dawn in the following report.
4 to 6-year-old hails from Boya, Fako Division in the Southwest region. Proud to his appointment as Deputy Coordinator of the National Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Committee, the university professor was serving as Chief of Division in charge of employment and operations at the Army Fire and Rescue Corps at the Mimboma neighborhood in Yaoundé. Lieutenant Colonel Ekoso Francis is expected to work in close collaboration with the National Coordinator, Fa Yengo Francis, to ensure that more ex-fighters return to normal life.
We are coming in to understand people and have them understand us, and that we need to live as one nation.
The National Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Committee, DDR, was created by a presidential decree on November 30, 2018. The institution was created to give peace a chance in the face of the ongoing socio-political and security crisis rocking the two English-speaking regions and the Boko Haram threats in the far north region.
Thank you, Clarence Ngeh. Prime Minister Joseph Dion Gute says peace remains a priority in the Northwest and Southwest regions as the follow-up committee for the implementation of the Major National Dialogue meets for the first time. The Major National Dialogue, staged between September 30th and October 4th, aimed at resolving the Anglophone crisis. We now go over to Marwa, where truck drivers and the population of the far north capital, Marwa, have been using alternative roads to get to the other side of the collapsed Polar Bridge or to the Mayo Savar and Lagon and Shari divisions as well as neighboring countries. Though these alternatives inconvenience the residents, they are now hoping that something will be done, especially as interministerial delegations have been announced for the hours ahead. Titles of the story with Henry Tata Ikembi.
The journey might be longer and more stressful now, but one thing is sure, truck drivers can now transport goods to and from neighboring countries with the alternative provided by the authorities here. The governor of the far north has instructed that they can only fly the Green Bridge, popularly known in Marua as Pont Vert.
As far as the truck is concerned, they have to go through Pont Vert and to join the road in order to go to Kusiri. Pont Rouge have some difficulties as far as pillar is concerned, and that's why we forbid trucks to go through this pont, and you have to pass through Pont Vert.
The drivers of these heavy-duty trucks that have already journeyed through Pont Vert that Pont Vert, which is now serving everyone and dates back to the colonial era, might also give way. The authorities are sure that it is a short-term measure as lasting solutions are on the way. The authorities and officials of the Electricity Corporation are also working tooth and nail to provide electricity through the thermal station in Marua after the populace experienced power outage for half a day due to the floods.
2 suspected poachers have been apprehended by the security forces in Betwa, Joyce.
Yes, Maki, the arrest follows a tip-off from informants of the elements of the East Legion. Details of the story with Mati Mabu.
Are an endangered species of animals protected by the Forestry and Wildlife Family worldwide. Cameroon, with its rich forests and fauna, has been losing hundreds of elephants due to poachers in search of their precious ivory. Thanks to the forces of law and order and forest guards, many poachers have been arrested and huge stock of ivory seized and burnt. But yet, there are still poachers, resellers and middlemen who are still carrying out the black market business. This is the case of 2 suspects caught in the dragnet at the quartier Italy and Enya in Betwa, Biancha and Michel, after a tip-off from an informant of the elements of the East Legion, wanted to propose 13 kilos of ivory, that is 55,000 francs per kilo, totaling 715,000 francs to a supposed gold dealer, who on the contrary was an informant of the JPIC and the Legion elements. After trying to track a certain Jean-Paul from Yokodoma, who brought the ivory and received 25,000 francs as his booty, the force of law and order tried to no avail.
We received a phone call from one of our collaborators who informed us about some individual who wanted to sell to him ivories. When we received this information, we organized an operation which led to the arrest.
While waiting for further investigation, the 2 suspects are in custody at the East Gendarmerie Legion.
From the east, we now move over to the littoral region of Cameroon, where some 200 students, public and private service personnel in Douala are currently being drilled on some ICT tools aimed at giving employment and boost professional experience in the era of the COVID-19. The training is an initiative of the National Agency for Information and Communication Technology, ANTIC, and would run for 3 days. Details of that story with Larry's Nane Apote.
The coronavirus pandemic has given a chance for the world at large to experience first-hand power of digital technology, as it has enabled a continuation of work, education, and improved communication via its different platforms. Thus, the National Agency for Information and Communication Technology, ANTIC, has through these workshops sought to revalorize the skills of ICT students, public and private sector personnel, and some 50 leaders of government, industry, civil society, and academia who were present physically and on live chat. According to the Director General of ANTIC, Ebot Eno, the seminar is to empower youths with digital skills required to transform and improve on the well-being of their communities. The program at its 2nd edition recorded successes at the end of its 1st edition, as ANTIC has developed numerous solutions in the domains of farming, technology, education and weather, most especially for start-uppers who have today integrated the professional world. In this edition of the Cameroon Digital Skill, participants will be empowered with required skills to thrive in the post-COVID-19 technology-driven economy and the fourth industrial revolution.
We now move out of the country, where the U.S. has imposed sanctions on senior officials in the International Criminal Court, including Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has accused the court of illegitimate attempts to subject Americans to its jurisdiction. Details of that story with Gladys Asu.
On Wednesday, the United States announced sanctions against Fatou Bensouda, the International Criminal Prosecutor, in objection to the continued investigation into alleged war crimes against humanity committed by U.S. military personnel during their service in Afghanistan. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accuses the court of illegitimate attempts to subject Americans to its jurisdiction. In 2017, Bensouda made public that she would request authorization from the judges to reopen the investigation of these alleged war crimes, which supposedly occurred within the context of the Afghan conflict, in particular by the United States Army. This recent sanction is yet another obstacle placed in the way of the ongoing investigation, as the Gambian national had already seen her U.S. visa revoked last year, but had nevertheless carried on fearlessly with her professional duties. The ICC, of which Washington is not a member, is an international court to try war crimes and crimes against humanity.
And it is with that story that we draw the curtains of the 6 p.m. edition. But don't go away as I leave you in the company of Mookie.
Thanks, Joyce.
You're welcome.
Let's have a break. When we come back, we'll go to Bamenda to meet Winston Lebga.
Dans la nuit, ça nous donne beaucoup plus d'argent. En journée, nous avons les problèmes, la mairie, la communauté urbaine. Dans la nuit, on parvient à jongler comme ça parce qu'on sait que les gars de la mairie ne sont pas là. Et comme difficulté de la nuit, on nous agresse, on arrache nos motos, on nous poignarde de part à autre.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.
Now, PWD Bamenda is one of the teams, or the team to represent Cameroon in this year's CAF Champions League. Like other African teams, they have been suffering the consequences of the coronavirus with a kickoff imminent. How is the team faring now? Let's try to get in touch with our reporter, Winston Lebga, who is standing by in Bamenda. Winston, good evening.
Good evening, Adrian.
Now, Winston, how is PWD preparing, and are the coaches, the players, and officials out there already?
Yes, Edwin, but I must say that they are preparing in very, very difficult circumstances. Given that their base, Bamenda, has been hit since Tuesday by sporadic gunshots, especially with the killing of a police inspector. This afternoon, Commercial Avenue was deserted. Many streets of the town have been deserted, and we've been getting those gunshots every now and then. Yes, the teams, coaches, and officials are around, and the administration had issued specific training protocol to the players who've been respecting it individually, and the coaches are following up online. As from next Tuesday, they are to meet to evaluate what they've been doing. Edwin?
Yes, Winston Lebga, how have how is the team affected by the coronavirus?
Badly affected, of course. It has kind of destabilized their plans. And Coach David Pago, who was talking to me early today, said that when they'll arrive and come on Tuesday, they will run some tests to see who is healthy and who is not, and then they'll know what to do when they get the results. For 6 months, PWD have not met as a group since they stopped regular activities on account of the COVID-19 pandemic. And David Pago says they've received a blow on account of COVID-19.
And Winston, has the team enough financial resources, and is the population assisting that team?
Well, it's very tough for them. This is a team that depends on the fan base when it comes to finances, apart from what the team's administration can provide. PWD of Bamenda is one of those teams in the country where the fans and supporters usually contribute, like was the case last season, the fan club provided match bonuses for games won. And Pago says their Champions League ticket gives them a national team status. And so they're expecting that apart from the people whom they call big fans who dip their hands right deep into the pockets to produce some big amounts to be able to support that team, they're expecting that the state will also support them as they defend the national colors on the continental scene as representatives in the Champions League.
Before you leave us, are there any new recruits, and where are these recruits from?
Yeah, the number of them, he has not specifically given me the total number since he says negotiations are still going on with others. So far, we have people like goalkeeper Ashu Querido, who is the third goalkeeper of the Indomitable Lions senior team. He's coming from Horoya, Guinea-Conakry. There's a player called Bomba Vincent, who comes in from Edding Sports of the Lekki division, that's in the central region. We have Samen Billy. Samen Billy returns to base. You know, last season he didn't play because of what Pago calls administrative problems. He's back with PWD. We have Fede, Alex Freddy, coming from abroad and had a stint with Dragon Football Club. And they have this talent from the Regional League of the Northwest, Shem Herbert Bumwe, who played for Santos of Bamenda.
We have also heard, I don't know if it is confirmed, that some players, some key players of the team are leaving. So far, officially, the big name that has left was their hitman striker, Leon Boyomo. We've not had any confirmation of any big name this far. Leon Boyomo is the big name that left, and whose departure left a bitter taste on the lips of many of the fans who were not very happy with him having the opportunity to emerge Golden Boot for the first time in his career and abandoning the team when the fans believed they needed him most when they're about to play in the African Champions League as Cameroon winners for the first time in the history of that club. So that's the only official departure that I can confirm for now. I have not heard of any other big name that left the club. And the sports reporter you've been, if you were asked to advise that team now as they prepare for their African expedition? I'll advise them to pray very hard. Winston Lebga, thanks very much for being there. Edwin. Thanks very much, Winston. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to being present. Thank you, too. Let's have another break. When we come back, we shall have our guests, Jeeno Ebai, Ngaba Cletus Kongyu, and Deng Eric. They will be with us here in the studio.
Très heureuse de vous retrouver pour ce nouveau numéro de Carré Social. À la une, lutte contre les maladies prostatiques au Cameroun, une campagne de dépistage de ces maladies.
Comment se faire détecter? Ça signifie qu'à partir de 40 ans, pour des sujets dont un membre de la famille a eu à développer un cancer, il est préférable de passer voir un médecin. Les causes peuvent être multiples.
La couleur verte est la couleur la plus présente dans la nature, n'est-ce pas? On l'associe à l'espoir et à la chance.
Toujours ce 17 novembre, le monde célèbre la journée mondiale du souvenir de la circulation routière. Placée sous le thème « La vie n'est pas une pièce de rechange de véhicule ».
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.
Bienvenue à votre magazine de santé par les aliments. Riche en magnésium et en phosphore, l'arachide, encore appelé cacahuète.
Et la grosseur maintenant aussi détermine en quelque sorte certaines variétés, mais l'essentiel c'est les nutriments. Toutes ces variétés-là procurent les mêmes nutriments.
Découvrez quelques astuces de nettoyage rapide et économique pour retrouver une semelle toute neuve.
Les recherches ont prouvé que les feuilles de manioc permettent déjà de baisser le taux de sucre. Donc tous ceux qui sont hyper tendus, les feuilles de manioc sont idéales pour eux. Déjà parce que les feuilles de manioc contiennent la vitamine C. La vitamine C, c'est une vitamine déjà antioxydante.
Solange adore le zome accompagné de feuilles de gombo. Elle nous donne les détails de la préparation de ce plat. Regardez, on se retrouve juste après.
Mon mets préféré, c'est le plat de zome accompagné des feuilles de gombo.
De le bouillon, vous déposez vos pâtes.
Je vais prendre ma papaye que je vais diviser en demi-lune. Je vais prendre mes pois que je vais fendre en quartier.
Retrouvez-nous tous les vendredis à 11h11 sur CRTV News.
Tout d'abord, le volet purement sportif avec les finales dames et messieurs de lancer de poids, de saut en longueur, de course sur 60 et 400 mètres.
Strategy was not moving.
You're once more welcome to Twilight on CRTV News, today dedicated to sports and especially football. Now that some countries are already, reorganizing the games after a long period that was characterized or that was imposed by the coronavirus. We have with us Njeno Ebai, who is sports editor for CRTV Radio. Njeno, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Moki. I'm elated being here.
I'm sure people will be very happy seeing the person who carries that heavy voice and who does the good reports for an analysis for Cameron Calling. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
We have your colleague, Dan Eric, who is also of the sports service, the sports editor. Am I mistaken? That is the Guardian Post.
You're right. You're right.
Post. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much, Moki. I'm glad to be here and to put my own contributions across as far as football within this period of COVID-19 is concerned.
How much time do you dedicate, or space do you dedicate for sports in your paper, The Guardian Post?
We run an entire page for sports. That is page 12 of The Guardian Post. In every edition is dedicated to sports.
And how are you reporting now that there's this coronavirus and very, very little activity?
I think that what has been going on in the world of football, not only in Cameroon, football activities were brought to a halt at the peak of the COVID-19, but sometime later in Europe, the competitions resumed. The Premier League, La Liga, the Italia, the competitions just running off. We're doing some reports on that, especially as far as Cameroonian footballers out there are concerned. And then with what Faker Food was doing back at home, trying to support the clubs. I think that we've been doing a lot to report on the activities off the field of play.
Now, Gaba Kletus Kongyu, you are a sports analyst. You too, I'm sure you've been some sort of discouraged with no activity during this period.
Well, that would be an easy conclusion to draw, but contrary to the way it seems, there has actually been a lot taking place, as the sports editor for the Guardian Post was just pointing out right now. And in fact, it was even more interesting than other seasons because for a period of about 2 months, there was nothing at all. And then when the leagues began to resume, the matches were just coming in thick and fast. Every day there were like 1, 2, 3 matches. So at the end of the day, it ended up being more interesting than usual.
Okay, I'll start with Njeno by now to get into the subject matter. To talk about sports in Cameroon, football in Cameroon, there have been these talks about resumption. Do you think Cameroon now, with this current state of affairs, can start football matches?
That's a very difficult question, I must say. But if we look at most of the countries around the continent, I want to use the African context and not the European. A lot of the major championships around the continent have resumed. Fortunately for us, and this is also an opportunity for us to commend the efforts and the sacrifices that have been made by the health personnel to bring the coronavirus under control. Now, saying this, I think that the league can begin based on a couple of factors. First and foremost, if the league has to be played, let's understand that there is always this desire by government authorities to make sure that the coronavirus infected persons goes down, that there is that there are fewer cases. If we have to do this, first and foremost, we'll have to ensure that the players who are competing are being tested, and that's being done. I think Stade Rennais of Melong resumed activities 2 days ago, and all of the players were tested. It's been the same for Colombe Sportif of Jan Lobo. The players have been tested. I think it's the same scenario for Coton Sport of Garoua. And if all of these players come in negative, they can play football. But this will depend on a number of factors. We can bring the teams together and say we'll play in a particular venue or in a particular city. For example, the city of Douala or perhaps Yaoundé is endowed with a lot of football facilities. You have the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium, you have the annex facility there, you have the military stadium, you have the stadium, the Beak football pitch, even though there are still renovation works that are ongoing. And then you have the 2 pitches at the Olembe Stadium that are set for action. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was there with the Minister of Sports for a visit, and I saw the annex facilities. They are ready and they can host football games. We could bring in all of these teams and ask them to play, because the reality of it is gate takings do not play a very major role in the financing of teams lately, because the heavyweights like Union of Douala, who used to rake in maybe 4, 5, 10, 15 million francs as gate takings when they used to play at the Unification Stadium, did not for the past seasons play in their base where they have their fans. They were playing in Limbe, and so they had lesser revenue compared to what they had in yesteryears. And we also have to remember that in the past seasons, the championship has been bankrolled courtesy of the finances from the government. That's via the Ministry of Sports, and then through FECAFOOT. I think the subvention for Elite 1 and 2 football is 550 million, with 300 million coming from the government and 250 from FECAFOOT. I think that if we can bring these teams together...
That should be our first division teams. What about Elite 2 and the other Elite 3 and so on in the country? Would it be possible to bring them together?
The priority for football authorities should be the Elite 1. Cognizant of the major tournaments that we're hosting in the months. In 4 months, we will be hosting the African Nations Football Championship, the CHAN, that kicks off in January. It is really difficult for the team to prepare properly if there is no championship. Because like the coach said, the championship last season was a test ground for him. He was able to keep his players fit with the championship running. And I want to stress here that a lot of the countries that will compete in the CHAN have already started with their local championships. Now,
that's where we're coming. We'll come back to you, Njeno Bai, but he's talking about teams that will be getting continental competition and so on. Deng Eric, the case of PWD Bamenda, when you look at them with the current state of affairs, we start, it's their first experience too.
Yes, Edwin, PWD of Bamenda is returning to the continental scene after, I should say, close to 16 years. They were in 2004 in the Confederations Cup. Okay. And so it's taken 16 years and they are back. And if we listen to Winston Lebga from Bamenda, the last 2 or 3 days in Bamenda have not been the best with the shootouts in town. Now, the team was to resume training on the 1st of September. That was Tuesday this week. But it pushed, the club management pushed the resumption of their training session forward to next Tuesday, which is the 8th. And in such an environment, we will begin to question how PWD is going to train with all the insecurity that is in the town of Bamenda. When you see armed fighters of the separatist movement coming right to town to attack, elements of the defense forces, and you begin to ask yourself, if the team goes out to train and maybe they are caught in a crossfire, that is already. But I think that besides those problems, PWD of Bamenda has a target that is minus the insecurity in town. The players, the management still have to look ahead. They have a golden opportunity stepping back to the continental scene. Cameroonians, especially the people of Bamenda and those of the Northwest, are looking forward to seeing a PWD team that won the championship last football season. We must admit that PWD won, even though there were 6 more matches to go to.
Calling them COVID champions.
Well, there were 6.
I think it's bad faith to call PWD COVID champions for several reasons. They were consistent. They showed great resilience in the past season. Let's not forget that Cotton Sport of Garwa topped the championship for a couple of days. And then they lost a string of games in Garwa. I think they lost to teams in the bottom part of the championship, while PWD maintained that resilience and kept on winning the key games. Let's not forget that the game between PWD of Bamenda and Cotton Sport of Garwa in Bamenda was really a feisty one. And were it not for a few refereeing irregularities, PWD should have won that game. I think it's a well-deserved game.
Okay.
And that's sports. You do the best when you can to make sure that you've got all the chances on your side. I'll take, for example, Liverpool Football Club. They won all of their games before March. They lost just one. And then when they came back, they'd done everything they needed to do. They'd taken care of the job. When they came back, when football resumed post-COVID, you see they lost a couple of games. But they still won the championship with a comfortable margin because they had been consistent and resilient.
Now, Mr. Gaba, let's talk about the example from elsewhere. I think I want to agree with them or what they have said that we can start with the football matches.
I totally
but what
agree.
about the example from elsewhere? How is it succeeding elsewhere out of Africa?
Yes, like in
empty pitches, spectators are not there.
You know, like Eno pointed out, it's not really the gate fees that give the bulk, the money, you know, of the income, the finances for the clubs. That's why, despite all the complications, they made sure that most of this came to an end. At the French league, that decided to halt when the COVID measures were taken. They decided to halt and just declare PSG champions. And they were almost sanctioned by UEFA. UEFA was very bitter about it because the main thing are the TV rights. And it's true that the COVID is still there. It's still making big teams and we still have to be careful. But the trend is encouraging, even worldwide, even at the international
How is it done outside? Are the fans, the spectators, are they tested also before they get to the stadium?
Well, spectators are not yet being allowed. Measures are being taken. Authorities are studying the possibility of giving maybe limited numbers of spectators to come in when the next season begins. Maybe like in a stadium of maybe 80,000 places, they can take like 20,000 spectators so that they are spaced out. But I want to believe that that would be a little bit complicated because if you have to test 20,000 people, but for the players it's easy. For the players and the management, it's easy to test them.
Now, I've been told that our reporter is on the line to Douala, René Kache. We're getting the littoral region, which is one of the powerhouses of Cameroon football, which is also affected by the COVID-19 that has been killing people all over the world. René Kache is CRTV sports reporter in Douala. René, what is the current situation of local footballers during this coronavirus period?
Hello, Moki. Good evening, and thanks for having me again on the show. Well, it is a very, very complicated situation with players of the National League 1 and 2 football clubs here in the economic capital city, Douala. Of course, we know that the coronavirus has affected the sports landscape. Virtually every sport discipline is affected by the coronavirus, and key actors who happen to be the athletes themselves are equally the worst hit as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Well, we have clubs like Union Sportive of Douala, Astor Football Club of Douala. There is equally a club like Stade Renard of Melong, as well as UMS of Loom, who have all sent their players back home. Most of these clubs cannot afford, to keep the players and of course make them or keep them comfortably financially, and so most of the players are definitely out of activity. The clubs themselves are out of activities. If you visit the head offices of these clubs, a club like Union Sportive of Douala, if you visit their head office out there, you would understand what I'm talking about. Nothing seems to be going on apart from a few administrators, who come to the office probably to sign, papers and all of that.
Well, that's Rene Kache in Douala. Now, Rene, I'm not going yet. What are some of the strategies adopted by players in order to get life going amidst this health crisis, Rene?
Well, Muki, most of these players have resorted to different activities. Some of them go to play inter-quarter football competitions, you know, to get some incomes from organizers of inter-quarter football competition, which, of course, you must admit is very, very complicated and very, very dangerous because they are in, you know, into contract with their respective clubs. And so if they pick up injuries, it's going to be very, very difficult for their clubs and equally very complicated for themselves because they are not going to be able to play, you know, professional matches. But of course, they see that as one of the means of surviving, you know, inter-quarter football competition because they get paid by organizers of this inter-quarter football competition. Of course, some of them are, you know, very famous, and so when they go for such competitions, they get a lot of money, and some have resorted, you know, to petty trading. Some have, in spite of their superstar status quo, have opted, you know, for petty trading to get incomes to feed themselves and feed their families. Most of them are family, you know, men. Most of them are family men, so they have to take care of their families. They have to take care of their children and their wives, and so, you know, petty trading is equally one of the means that they have resorted to, you know, to getting income. And there are others who just sit quietly at home, you know, doing nothing while anxiously waiting for the resumption of activities or resumption of footballing activities so that they can, you know, start getting, you know, what they used to earn as match bonuses or as training allowances from their different clubs. So, Moki, it's indeed very, very complicated and difficult for these players who have to fend for themselves, you know, throughout this coronavirus pandemic period. Difficult, so to speak, for such players.
Well, you're not leaving yet, and just the last question for you, Rene Kache. What is the state of infrastructure earmarked for CHAN 2021 and AFCON 2022 in Douala, and how are they affected by the coronavirus?
Well, I want to say, Moki, that as far as the construction of stadia, you know, earmarked for the 2021 African Nations Championship and the 2022 Africa Cup of Nations are concerned, there has been a lot that had been done already before, you know, the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, you know, in the country. I want to say that the Japoma Sports Complex was virtually, or I should say the stadium was already set before a few or many months before the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. The reunification stadium itself was equally set, and then of course the Mbappe Lepe and the Bona Musadi Stadia were equally very set many months before the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. And so as far as sports infrastructure are concerned, I want to say that there is no worry as far as that is concerned. There is no worry because these stadia are already set and they can actually, you know, receive matches. Matches can actually be played there. So there's no worry as far as that is concerned. So what could really be worrying at the moment is the construction or renovation, I should say, of different road infrastructure, especially the major roads that are leading to these stadiums. For example, the Japoma Sports Complex with its access road, the road from, I should say, from Village right up to Japoma, which is still under construction. But I want to say that there is construction work that's going on in spite of the fact that there is a coronavirus pandemic. I was speaking, you know, with the contractors a few days ago, and they said that they have divided the work in such a way that I mean, the workers are not going to be affected by the coronavirus pandemic. There is the distancing measure, which is, you know, well practiced or well implemented by these companies. So as far as the road leading to the Japoma complex is concerned, work is going on in spite of the fact that there is the coronavirus pandemic. What is really worrying now is the access road into the Douala Reunification Stadium. That's where we still have some headaches. Looking forward to seeing the company that is charged with the construction of that access road, get back to work as fast as they can. And so, as far as hotels are concerned, there are some hotels that are equally earmarked, for the 2022 Africa Cup of Nations that are already set. There are others which are, undergoing renovation as well as construction work. But for the 2021 Africa Nations Championship, Moki, I can assure you that the hotels that were visited by the Confederation of African Football inspection mission, these hotels are set and can host visitors, can host the different teams. Let's not also forget that the officials of the different teams that are going to be participating in the 2021 African Nations Championship already visited their hotels and were visibly satisfied, with what they saw in terms of the rooms, in terms of the management, in terms of the cleanliness, as well as in terms of the lodging. So everything is set as far as that is concerned. The coronavirus pandemic came in a little bit late, to affect the works on these different platforms or infrastructure we're talking about. So there should be no worry. Cameroonians should have no worry at the level of the economic capital city with respect to the African Nations Championship, CHAN 2021, and as well as the 2022 Africa Cup of Nations, Moki.
Thank you very much, Rene Kache, for assuring us there. Apparently, in general, you have very good reporters. CRTV has some of the best in the country.
For sure.
But now, let me come back to you, Ngaba Tetus Konyu, from where Rene Kache ended about the CHAN. The team coach, Aroga, published a list of 30 with 9 on the waiting list. What was your reading of it?
Well, I looked at the list carefully and I noticed that, as expected, Kotong Sport had a high number of players. Even though PWD are champions, we know that Kotong Sport have most of the star names. And I was chanced during this confinement period to have one of the top players in that team. He was playing around us there, a very nice guy, Omosola Simon, the goalkeeper. And I saw the big names. The big names I've been hearing, the top guys. I saw the names on that list. I can see guys like Etabawak, guys like Ojong Nkongo. So, Alima, the list looks okay to me. I think the selection was fairly done. Though, of course, there will still be other good players. I'm thinking of someone like Francis Balian, who was man of the match of the Cameroon Cup final last season, who was not in the list, who may feel a little bit. But I think, all in all, it was not a bad list.
Do you share the same opinion, Eric?
Yes, I think I share the opinion with him because when you look at the list of 30 that was published by Coach Yves Clemens Roga, that was on Monday, he virtually brought in a majority of the players that had been with him in camp for a couple of months before the outbreak of COVID-19. Like Gaba was saying there a while ago, when you look at the goalkeeping compartment, Omosola comes up every now and then. He's not new to the CHAN competition. He featured in the 2016 and 2018 CHAN competitions. And he equally featured last year in the Under-23 African Cup of Nations in Egypt. And so it's a big name in that team. Then you equally look at somebody like Dande Junior, who is coming in from Apejes on full goalkeeper. At least he's equally had a good number of teams with that club. Then Leon Boyomo, who scored 11 goals. That was the top scorer of last football season. Is equally in that list. Where I still think the coach maybe left out a big hand, which we will look at somebody like Anyederik Fru, who left Panther of Bangante and joined Cotton Sport of Garwa for the new football season. He had 11 clean sheets last football season, the best any goalkeeper in the Cameroon top flight has ever had. he comes in the waiting list, and people are beginning to question. Before the outbreak of COVID-19, there was a pre-selection camp that was to take place in Bafoussam. He was among the 3 goalkeepers that were selected, but this time around, he's been dropped to the waiting list. Alphonse Marie Chencho of Union of Douala is equally in the waiting list. He's somebody who has equally had, he featured in the African Nations Championship. I want to say that the list is good, and I don't want to completely rule out the fact that those who are on the waiting list may not integrate the full list, because at the end of the training camps, this may not be the last, because we'll still have till the end of December or November for the coach to make his final list of players that will be submitted to CAF ahead of the competition in January. So I think that as Coach Aroga goes to camp the close of next week in Bankomo with the 30 selected, he precise that this camp is going to be, there's a focal point, it's going to be more athletic, because the players have been out of competition for five months.
We shall get that to you, but let me come back to I'll come back to you shortly, because I followed the paper you did on the radio and was asking myself if the man should have done better, but we'll come to you. Now, are you foreseeing this Chan, the Cameroon, really making it back home? When you compare the team Cameroon with other teams that have qualified and are making it out there?
Yes, I actually don't see any reason why we shouldn't be among the top teams, because when I look at the big names in Africa, names like Egypt and Nigeria, there are few of them. I don't remember seeing Senegal among the teams that qualified, unless I'm mistaken. I don't remember seeing Côte d'Ivoire. We're seeing countries like Niger, with all due respect. And
should we be counting countries now or teams? Because it looks as if there's no, I mean, all countries are doing well in football now. There's no little country now.
Yes, it's very important. I remember the last time there was a match we played, I think it was against the Comoros Islands. And I was shocked when I started watching the match around the 80-something minute. I was coming from somewhere, and I started watching, and it was 1-1. And the Lions were actually struggling to hang on to a 1-1 draw. So it's true. We shouldn't actually underestimate. But at least even just psychologically, when you look at the other qualified countries and you see that, okay, the likes of Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Egypt are not there.
You think
Edwin,
we'll come to you. Okay. Before we left, we were trying to look at the list that the coach published. I followed you on radio, and it's as if you had some reservations on it. You were put in a lot of questions.
Effectively, before I say anything, I just want to mention that Coach Yves Clément Aroga has said on several occasions that his list is still wide open, even though we're 4 months to the competition, and that he believes that if a player can impress, even 1 month to the competition, he'll bring him into the list. That said, I wanted to say that before I say any other thing. That said, obviously there can be a few reservations, and I'll start with the goalkeeping department. It's heart-wrenching to see that a goalkeeper supremely talented like Anya Derrick Fru is not in that list, or is on the waiting list. Anya Derrick Fru undoubtedly is the best goalkeeper in the championship. In about 40% of the games that they played, he was superior. He was enthralling. He was fascinating. And his performances tapped officials of Cotonsport who signed him. And if eventually Cotonsport of Garoua play the CAF Confederations Cup, he will be the one starting in between the sticks for the Cotton Weavers. It is thus unfathomable that a player of his quality, a player of his caliber, is not in the team. Because let's, just a gentle reminder to all those watching us, that Anya Derrick Fru was the second keeper for Cameroon at the 2018 African Nations Football Championship in Morocco. And we lost the first 2 games, and when he played the 3rd game, we got a draw because he was simply astonishing. Yeah. So it's hard to wrap one's head around the fact that he's not on the list. When you look at someone like Alphonse Marie Tiencho is 30 or 31. It's true he's not got the legs of his youthfulness, but he comes in with a wealth of experience. That is very crucial in such a tournament. Alphonse Marie Tiencho has won 2 Cups of Cameroon, has played for most of the major outfits in the country, and whenever he was in those teams, he was a mainstay. He's someone who's impressed throughout the championship, and the coach said that he felt that he didn't give in a lot during the break, that he didn't train a lot, that he gave a training protocol to some of the players and that he followed them individually. That's up to him. But I'm also a little bit heartbreaking that a young lad like Chindo John Bosco of PWD of Bamenda, who played his maiden, it was the first time he was playing the top tier championship for PWD. He just turned 18, he scored 5 goals and gave in 8 assists for the champions.
18?
8
He
assists.
gave 8 assists. He just turned 18 this year. He scored 5 goals and gave 8 assists for PWG of Bamenda. I think that just out of respect for the contribution that such a young player can bring to the championship, he should be at least even in the waiting list. Now, there's another player that caught the absence of another player that caught my attention is Tongwa Amel of Young Sports Academy of Bamenda.
Who scored 10 times.
Tongwa Amel, I think, scored 9 or 10 goals in 28 games. Tongwa Amel is just 19, and it was the first time that he was playing the championship, and I think that these players deserved to be there. There are many more players like that who've missed out on the list who I feel should have been there. There are some other players who are in the list who I feel should not be there, but I will not criticize the coach, the choices of Coach
What do you think is counting on Eric? Experience or the people he's been working with?
Well, like Geno said, the coach, Yves Clemence Aroga, said during the 5 months confinement, there was a protocol guide that he gave the players to carry out some individual trainings, and probably it's on that. But I want to say that you cannot be banking on that. If you are looking at the performances of these players on the field of play, I mean, it will be more subtle to say that, okay, this player did not give in the best during the championship or in competitions. But you cannot be judging. Well, I'm not the coach, but I'm saying that judging the players as per the fact that the protocol guide for training that was given them during the confinement was not well respected. The coach has convened the 30 players to come. There are others whose names don't even feature in the waiting list of 9 because, like I said a while ago, those in the waiting list of 9 may integrate the team. Those who are not, no. Well, and also
if I may,
briefly, sir.
Yes, thank you. If I may just mention this, Coach Yves Clemence Aroga initially said that he wanted to draft a list of 35 with 9 on the waiting list, and that the head of the National Technical Department at Fekafoot Seshnoa said it was too much. That's why they trimmed the list down to 30 and 9 on the waiting list. But also, let's not forget that there is a tendency or there's a probability that some of the players in this list may not even be playing in the local championship by the time we host the Shan.
They're signing new contracts.
Exactly. We have players who've joined IS Vita. There's a Cameroonian who signed for Azam Football Club, that's a giant in Tanzania, of just a few days ago. Simon Omoshola Mejo, who
does that disqualify them from playing the
exactly because
gentlemen, we have about 6 minutes to be together, and want us to talk about the Cameroonian players who are playing out of the continent or out of here, how they've been faring there. I'm starting with you, Cletus.
Well, the first thing I would say is, and I think my colleagues here will agree with me, the first image that comes to my mind is Choupo-Moting. I quite remember that match against Atalanta in the Champions League quarter-final, where, we were watching the match there and some people were making fun of him like, oh, Choupo-Moting. And there was a guy who said, look, it's Choupo-Moting who is going to come in and change this match. And we were laughing at him. And lo and behold, when Choupo-Moting came in, the rest is history. He gave, almost an assist and he scored a goal.
Eventually, they lost the finals.
They lost the final. PSG got through the quarterfinal for the first time in their history.
Choupo, then who again?
We have Choupo-Moting. We have.
I think it was the first time in 25 years.
First time in 25 years after George Weah in 1995. Thank you. Jean-Pierre Samé.
I hear the guy is doing perfectly well.
Yeah.
The guy scoring just like a trophy.
Scoring for fun. Breaking records.
Yes.
He actually broke a record by Eto'o. He scored 32 goals.
He actually broke 3 records. He became the highest scoring player for his club, Young Boys Bern in Switzerland. He became the highest scoring African in the Swiss Championship. he became the highest scoring African in all of the top European leagues. I think he broke 3 or 4 records, and he's simply been fascinating. I think this season, Jean-Pierre Samé has made a case for himself to be the lead striker, the lead attacker for the national team, even though we have the likes of Vincent Aboubakar. We also have a player that a lot of people don't talk about because he plays in China, but that's John Mary, who plays for Shenzhen. I think
John Mary, Cameroonian?
Yes,
Cameroonian. Has he been called back home at any moment?
Exactly. He was called up for the last 2 international games. Unfortunately, he didn't play. He has scored 5 goals this season, I think, in 5 or 6 games. He's also a very talented player that we can expect.
John Mary?
Yes, John Mary. There is also a young star, a lad who plays for Saint-Etienne. His name is Yaris Neyu, I think Neris Neyu, something like that. But that's a very good player, and I think that officials of the national football team should keep an eye on that kid. He used to play for Braga in Portugal, and he signed for Saint-Etienne. And I watched him on his debut playing for Saint-Etienne against Paris Saint-Germain. I think it was in the French Cup final, and he was simply fascinating.
Has he been called back home at any moment?
Not. I don't think
playing in France or.
and that's why officials of the national team must put an eye on that. There are a lot of them, and he did well to mention them. There are a lot of Cameroonian players who impressed abroad. Choupo-Moting, I think this is a player who has not been given the recognition that he deserves. Let's not forget that during the 2013-2014 and 2014-2015 season, Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting was among the top 10 dribblers in all the major championships in Europe. This guy is a supremely talented player, very good attacker, a workaholic, but unfortunately his career has been dented by recurrent knee injuries. But it should take nothing away from the quality of the captain of the Indomitable.
And I should say that he will be leaving Paris Saint-Germain. Probably we don't know his next destination. We got media reports that he's being linked with Monaco. I don't know if that is the best for him, but we believe that he gave the best of himself, though at one moment Coach TWILIGHT of Paris Saint-Germain did not give him enough play time. But of course, that singular act, that singular goal, the goal and the assist at the quarterfinal of the European Champions League, gave him
2
that.
2 minutes ago, we start concluding, but let me start with you. Shouldn't those in the Northwest, now that PW is codified, use these moments as a moment of reconciliation and peace, so that they watch the team, train at home, and play at home if possible?
You know, sports has always played that role. Sports has always played the role of unifying people, bringing people together, and putting aside all the differences and all the conflicts. I want to even believe that the fact that they have been able to play this far, and I think none of their matches, unless I'm to be contradicted, none of their matches in the course of the season was ever hindered in any way. So let's just pray that this should be, you know, an opportunity for that bridge, yes, to be crossed.
Well, true you say, but I don't know how far PWD's continental competition, that is the Champions League games, I know they will not be played in Bamenda because probably the Mile 6 field of Young Sport Academy, which they are using, does not meet the standard, the CAF standard. And so those matches may either be played here in Yaoundé or in Douala. But I think that the population of Bamenda, which is a sport-loving public, is ready to rally behind the team. We are in a very difficult situation. There are those who would love to push PWD ahead, but of course the fact that we have all these challenges here and there because of the shootout in Bamenda and neighboring areas, they may not be able to really have that zeal to give in that push, given that equally at this moment the economy of the Northwest region, like that of the Southwest region, is really down.
Now, if the coach for the national team, the Indomitable Lions, called United, can you propose 2 names to join the Indomitable Lions? To join the Indomitable... From the ones you say are outside who are doing well?
Within the country or beyond?
One from the country, one
from the League One Championship.
Thomas Tabawak, and then I'll probably bring in Neyu. I think those 2 players. Yep.
Same? Okay, so
no, Jean-Pierre Samé is regular for the national team.
Yes. We spoke about sports in Cameroon football and how it's affected by COVID, and how sports is bringing hope to so many people out there and making our country proud. I want to thank Nje Enoibai, who is sports editor for CRTV Radio, Ngaba Cletus Konyo, who is a sports analyst, and then Eric, who is editor for the Guardian Post daily newspaper, sports editor. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is exactly 7 o'clock in Yaoundé, and Nadia Mana is already here for the news. Good evening, Nadia.
Tout à fait. Bonsoir, Moki Edwin Kinzeka.
You have time for the news.
Okay. Dans cette édition de 19h, nous allons commencer avec le comité de suivi des recommandations du Grand Dialogue national qui est donc en conclave à Yaoundé. C'est sa première session depuis la création par le président de la République le 23 mars dernier. Les travaux présidés par le président John Gouté évalue le chemin parcouru pour le retour définitif à la paix dans les régions du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest depuis la tenue du Grand Dialogue national sans exclusive. Lutte contre la dégradation de l'environnement, la solution qui vient des parlementaires. Le groupe de travail baptisé le réseau des parlementaires pour l'économie circulaire a procédé au lancement de ses activités. Dans l'extrait qui va suivre, écoutons le président de ce réseau de travail. Il est au micro de Pulchéry Até.
Tous les bouteilles en plastique qui sont jetées dans les rues doivent être transformés. Pour qu'on ne voit pas les incidents comme ce qui s'est passé à Douala il y a de cela une semaine. On doit faire en sorte qu'une loi doit être passée.
Dans la suite du journal, nous parlons de rentrée scolaire, une rentrée qui frappe déjà à nos portes. Selon les parents, l'édition cette année, l'addition sera plutôt salée cette année, contrairement aux années précédentes. Et pour y faire face, les parents nous livrent leurs petits secrets. Ils sont au micro de Sadou Mamoudou.
Cal est quasiment au bord du gouffre. C'est que, pour ce chef de famille, la rentrée scolaire rime avec rentrée de colère. Le retour de ses enfants sur les bancs grève son budget. Pire, le Covid-19 a laissé son empreinte.
Nous avons un budget qui s'est élevé tant sur le plan alimentaire que sur le plan de l'entretien même normal même de la maison. J'ai un enfant qui a eu la licence en relations internationales, pays et développement, qui coûte valablement 600 000 francs par an. Il doit aller en master, un master qui va coûter 900 000. On ne peut pas dire aujourd'hui que du coup, on va pourvoir à tous ses besoins alors qu'il a ses petits frères.
Maman Virginie, elle, attise les flammes sous sa friteuse. Elle doit écouler ses beignets de maïs au maximum pour assurer une rentrée effective à ses 3 bambins. Comme elle, Robert Boifou doit se lever tôt, tel un rossignol sifflotant et nous livrer notre pain quotidien au nom de la responsabilité parentale.
C'est à propos de ces grains de pain-là que je me défends pour payer leur pension. Je me lève à 3 heures et je peux même avoir des fois 2 000, des fois 2 500.
En tout, ça peut faire 30 000.
Les parents rencontrés dans le cadre de ce baromètre plaident pour une allocation spéciale rentrée scolaire par les pouvoirs publics pour faire face aux effets pervers de la maladie à coronavirus.
En économie, le secteur des paris sportifs peine à revivre ses beaux jours, même s'il est mieux qu'hier. À Yaoundé, la période post-Covid-19 relance l'enthousiasme du jeu et du pari et fait même miroiter des gains à ses adeptes. Notre reporter Daoud Mouliom a fait le tour de quelques salles de jeu à Yaoundé.
Heureuse pour les acteurs de la chaîne des paris sportifs. Passé la période critique de la pandémie du Covid-19, les aires de sport se déconfinent et les salles de jeu refont foule, bien que relativement.
Il y a toujours l'affluence, mais les mises ont baissé. Ceux qui misaient parfois 1000 francs, ils misent 300, 250. Il n'y avait pas trop d'affluence pendant le corona.
Ça nous a vraiment impacté. Nous étions obligés de diminuer le personnel, à la limite même fermer certaines salles.
Et si les parieurs évitent l'œil de la caméra pour des raisons évidentes, ils disent se réjouir des nouvelles opportunités de paris et gains d'argent. Pour les employés du secteur, ce sont également des signes qui présagent de meilleures affaires.
Depuis que la maladie a commencé, la tendance a vraiment baissé au niveau de la clientèle.
On faisait un jour à la maison, un jour au travail et ce n'était pas facile. Et directement, le salaire était divisé en 2. Il n'y avait plus même un parieur dans la salle. Il restait rien que le Kenya et le chien. Et c'est d'abord les matchs qui attirent les parieurs dans nos salles.
Il n'y a pas que du football. Nous sommes diversifiés. Nous avons plusieurs jeux. Les jeux virtuels, par exemple, et les jeux réels.
Au fur et à mesure que les footballeurs renouent avec les pelouses, par exemple, Les joueurs de Paris Foot et autres écument les box et guichets. Il faut valider son ticket à temps. Peut-être sera-t-il gagnant.
Humanitaire, le Haut Commissariat pour les réfugiés réaffirme l'une de ses vocations, celle d'assurer la réinsertion sociale des exilés forcés. C'était au cours d'un séminaire ici à Yaoundé à l'Institut des Relations internationales du Cameroun. Notre reporter Lorraine Sangwa a assisté aux travaux. Voici son compte rendu.
On commence à faire une assistance.
Un cours magistral ayant pour module phare la problématique de la prise en charge des exilés forcés. Plus déterminé que jamais, le Haut Commissariat des Nations Unies pour les réfugiés, sous la houlette de l'UNICEF, réaffirme son attachement à demeurer aux côtés des victimes de conflits. Sa nouvelle vision se focalise sur un plaidoyer plus accentué en faveur du devenir de cette communauté. De manière plus formelle au sein de ce temple du savoir, la création d'une filière dédiée à la problématique migratoire et en gestation très poussée. Étant au carrefour de la sagacité intellectuelle et du rayonnement mondial du Cameroun, le séminaire s'est déroulé dans le respect strict des mesures barrières.
En sport, le comité national paralympique se dote d'une direction technique nationale. Réunie en conseil, les différentes fédérations des sports paralympiques ont posé les jalons de cette nouvelle technique de détection et de formation des athlètes. Écoutons Jean-Jacques Ndoudou, il est le président du dit comité.
Pour aider le comité national paralympique à avoir une politique claire dans les domaines paralympiques, et en même temps, nous voulons que cette DTN s'occupe des problèmes de classification, sans lesquels il n'y a pas de parasport, des problèmes de formation, de développement du parasport. C'est pour ça que cette DTN aura 4 départements pour que nous puissions suivre de près nos parathlètes de la base jusqu'au stade de haut niveau. Et voilà pourquoi nous allons mettre un point d'honneur à la sélection des cadres compétents qui pourront vraiment aider les CNPC à avoir une véritable politique dans le domaine paralympique et surtout à encadrer et assurer efficacement les performances de nos parathlètes.
À l'étranger, les États-Unis imposent des sanctions économiques à l'encontre de 2 membres de la Cour pénale internationale, dont la procureure Fatou Bensouda, d'origine gambienne. Des mesures sans précédent et inacceptables par le président de l'Assemblée des États partis de la Cour. On fait le point de cette actualité avec Adèle Sylviane Kalga.
2 membres de la Cour pénale internationale sur la liste noire américaine. L'administration de Donald Trump met sa menace à exécution en imposant des sanctions économiques inédites à la procureure de la Cour pénale internationale Fatou Bensouda et à PATYCHOU Muchochoko. Washington ne décolère pas contre la décision prise en appel en mars d'autoriser l'ouverture d'une enquête pour crimes de guerre et crimes contre l'humanité en Afghanistan. L'enquête souhaitée par la procureure Bensouda vise entre autres des exactions qui auraient été commises par des soldats américains dans le pays. Les 2 membres de la CPI ont vu leurs avoirs être gelés et l'accès au système financier américain barré. Des sanctions inacceptables qui suscitent plusieurs réactions. Pour l'organisation non gouvernementale Human Rights Watch, ces mesures punitives constituent une perversion ahurissante des sanctions américaines censées pénaliser ceux qui violent les droits humains, utilisés ici pour persécuter ceux qui sont chargés de juger les crimes internationaux.
C'est sur cette actualité hors de nos frontières que nous mettons un terme à cette édition du journal. Nous vous laissons en compagnie de Moki Edwin Kidzeka pour la suite de Twilight. Bonne suite, Moki.
Thank you, Nadia. Let's have a break, then we'll come back to have the last segment of this program, which is a supplement with Ate Bonaventure.
Nous faisons peau neuve dans cette édition de In Vitro. Le soin corporel et particulièrement celui du dos est au menu de cette édition.
Ici, comme vous l'avez dit en introduction, nous sommes dans la salle de contrôle des préservatifs. Nous faisons un contrôle de la conformité de la qualité des préservatifs masculins et féminins.
Nous allons appliquer du miel qui est très très riche en nutriments.
Comment est-ce que se porte ce métier à présent, ce métier de bijoutier ici au Cameroun?
Actuellement, ce que je peux vous dire, la bijouterie, ça ne marche plus.
Ce travail consiste à traiter toutes les dégradations, que ce soit les nids de poules, que ce soit les fissurations ou les affaissements.
Le principe est simple, il faut que je mouille d'abord les 2 cylindres. Quand je finis de mouiller les 2 cylindres, c'est pour que quand je passe, on ait une route déjà ouverte à la circulation après mon passage.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.
Nous retrouver pour cette édition de ressources.
Nous avons fait des formations sur les thèmes.
L'ambition du ministère de l'Habitat est de démarrer.
C'est le moment de prendre le round-up économique de la semaine. Vous venez avec les dernières informations sur l'économie au Cameroun et un peu au-delà. Toutes les régions ont abrité des comices agro-pastoraux.
Il y aura une voie d'emprise de 29 mètres et des équipements connexes.
Le ministre de l'Eau et de l'Énergie, Gaston Elundou Essumba, a lancé le 25 novembre dernier un programme de suivi, de contrôle.
Tous les spécimens partout dans le monde et on cherche à faire des cross-breeds.
Le monde agro-pastoral se déploie ainsi dans un contexte de crise sociopolitique avec un risque d'insécurité alimentaire.
Et pour sortir, on va prendre la direction du Kenya pour parler de ce petit détour.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.
It is time for a society supplement on Twilight that is on CRTV News, and we're talking back to school preparations. Ate Bonaventure is here to talk to us about what is trending. Ate, what is trending?
Good evening, Moke. Good evening to our dear televiewers. We talk back to school to say we are 3 weeks to school resumptions, and schools are getting set to receive students and pupils ahead of the upcoming academic year. Victor Siga has been visiting some of these schools and now paints the ambience that reigns there at the eve of back to school.
It is a timid atmosphere at the Christian Comprehensive Boarding Secondary School, Nkombong, few weeks to school resumption. However, school authorities say some parents had earlier been present since August 26 to register their children.
We started registration immediately, the written part of the GCE. Before then, we had done interview for Form 1, and we had above 100 students seeking for admission into Form 1.
In a bid to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, the number of students has been reduced to 1,000.
With the COVID-19 and with the prescription given by the state, we are maintaining the 50 students per class.
Elsewhere at Government Bilingual High School Esos, it is a different situation. Over 70 students have registered since August 1.
The first day we had 22. And this morning, I just made this statistics, we had 52 students who have enrolled, which means that the number has tripled.
Meanwhile, school administrators encourage many more parents to make it to the various schools of their children and register them.
If schools are getting set to receive students, what about the bookshops and stationaries? That is what our reporter Larry Efande has been finding out as to the measures taken to stock the necessary materials that shall be bought ahead of this school year. Let's hear him in this report.
Sale is slow. Here it's after midday, and this is the first client. The available stock doesn't meet zealous customers.
This year, we are just out for formality. Just out to get some books, just some books that children should be happy that they are going to go to school. But for their fees, I don't think that I personally will go ahead to pay the fees.
No fewer than basic exercise books are obtained, but no attempt for textbooks yet. Turnout is lackadaisical.
I'm not quite prepared yet. I'm not prepared yet.
These shops have been running all year, and their deal hasn't been good. As the traditional peak month of August sees a calendar twist, September becomes the last month to buckle up. Even at that, the effervescence in bookshops is missing 1 month to resumption.
Thanks, Larry Efande. And one of the problems that are always raised during this period ahead of back to school is lack of finances and other difficulties in the purchase of school needs for children ahead of the school year. And this is what some parents have been complaining to our reporter, Larry Efande. Let's listen to them in the following excerpt.
Corona and then the means of transport and everything has not permitted us to get prepared. So we are still waiting and hoping that it's going to be okay.
This year, we are just out for one, I'm out for formality. Just out to get some books, just some books that children should be happy that they are going to go to school. But for their fees, I don't think that I personally will go ahead to pay the fees. So we are still watching and see.
We are trying our best. Although that COVID-19 imposes us difficult possibility, even economical one and social, but we are trying. First of all, we are looking for those schools where our children can be secured, more secured.
And I think we have seen that some parents are anxious, they want to send their children to school. What about the schools? Are they ready to receive the students and pupils?
Well, Moki, from the best of my knowledge, the schools are ready to receive the people, but there is this question of which establishment should I send my child to? And this is what some parents have been facing, and most of them are those who may have been transferred from other towns and they are new in town, and so they have been asking the questions as to which school is best for my child. And our reporter, Jamila Katzalat, talked to a sociologist who now gives us an advice on how to choose a good school for our children. Let's hear him in this excerpt.
The choice of school of different parents depends on some factors. We can have, first of all, the cultural factor that take in consideration the perception or the conception that you have for the pandemic of COVID-19. If you live in the urban place or the rural place, for example, in Yaoundé, we have many schools, and in, for example, Mongonam to Baturi, you have only one school. The choice depends also of the economic factor that take in consideration the money you can pay the school. And the last factor, you can have the relationship factor that depends on if you know somebody that can secure your child in the schools.
We take you now to Douala, where Alphonse Sabongo, our regional correspondent, is telling us that a Mbororo young lady has made history, becoming the first of that community to back a PhD thesis in medicine. And this has been a source of joy in the Bororo community in the whole country. Let's hear him in the following report.
She is a pace setter from a community where education for the girl child has been a long time taboo. 25-year-old Zuleha Ali has invested the last 7 years of her life pursuing this dream to become the first ever female Mbororo holder of a doctorate degree in pharmaceutical sciences in Cameroon. Her research takes interest in seeking local alternative solutions to the malaria epidemic.
Now we use some molecules, but which has shown that there are limits to treat malaria. She tried to look for new molecules locally with our plants.
For close to 2 hours, she had an academic romance with a foreman jury to defend the work that also took her through the forests of Cameroon and South Africa.
I hope by this my parents will understand that education does not prevent marriage. and marriage is not necessary at a tender age.
Her kin and kindred present at the defense admitted that it is a lifetime achievement that proves the female Mbororo is able to create and break records if she dreams and believes in herself. Little wonder the jury awarded her the best ever grade given in a francophone subsystem of education in the country. Mention très honorable avec félicitations du jury.
That's an example worth emulating. We stay in Douala to say that there have been rumors that some secondary schools, that is private secondary schools, have been organizing background classes with disregard of the government measures banning holiday classes. Our Littoral Regional correspondent in Douala has been investigating the veracity of these allegations and now tells us more in this report.
It is a calm atmosphere in schools in Douala at the dawn of the Minister of Secondary Education's communique restricting holiday classes in all public and private institutions due to the persistent threat of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the Lycée Jos Bonanjo, the institution did not have holiday classes in its agenda like other government institutions, but the correction and deliberation of results of official examinations are
As far as the holiday classes are concerned, there is no holiday classes in this school. The only activities that are going on are the marking of the baccalaureate and the deliberation of BPC. The marking of baccalaureate started some days ago, and the one of BPC started this morning.
At the level of private institutions, which are known for the organization of holiday classes, they have respected the ministerial decision by putting a halt to these classes and continue with the admission of students in their schools.
For now, as the minister has spoken, we have no option than stopping anything that is related to that. We are carrying out registration in all the classes. Parents are coming to find out information concerning that. And we have carried out some entrance examination mostly into Form 1.
COVID-19 being the principal reason for this ban of holiday classes, schools have heightened their barrier measures.
We are still respecting all the measures, thermometer test. Being a school is going to resume in October, we'll continue to respect these measures.
Besides, some parents have been thinking of leading catch-up lessons with their children within the confines of their homes by themselves, but doubt how effectively they will be, given that they have missed a lot on this year's curricula.
Well, Moki, that was our societal supplement this Thursday on CRTV News.
Very enriching, Ate. But before you go, Ate, the children should be very excited to go back to school. I've been at home for 6 months now.
Of course, Moki, this is really good news for students who have been at home. It is true that they have played enough, they have gone for leisure, they have been at home doing one or two things, but it's high time they went back to school.
And we hope the government is going to take measures as usual to protect them when they go back to school. We hear also that if they go back to school, maybe divided into 2 shifts. Some go from morning to 12 and others from 12 to the evening.
Actually, that's some of the measures that the government is trying to put in place in order to ensure that the back to school is hitch-free and so that our children can learn without coronavirus, because coronavirus has come to stay.
And we must learn to live with it.
That is.
Thanks very much, Ate. And that's where we come to the end of today's edition of Twilight on CRTV News, in which we got news of how the sports world has been surviving in spite of the coronavirus and predictions that the Elite One Championship may be relaunched in Cameroon soon. We also got news of Chan that players have been called up by the head coach of that category of the Lions, and the competition will be staged in Cameroon probably in the month of January. I am Moki Edwin Kinzagan Yaoundé. Thank you for watching.